This is the Yamaha YZF-R7 and it bridges the gap between the YZF-R3 and the YZF-R1, considering that the YZF-R6 is now a track-only bike offered by Yamaha. There's two models of the YZF-R7 you can grab. One's a de-restricted version, one is a learner-approved model, which we have here. And in this review, I'm going to show you around the features that you get for the money and also take it for a ride to let you know if it's worth picking up as a first bike or maybe as a bike you might want to buy to get back into riding. And now with all that said, my name's Cameron, this is Product Review Cars, and this is a motorcycle review. Let's get into it. Now the YZF-R7, which is the learner approved model, starts just over $14,000 right away. Now that's not a short amount of cash, and you could easily justify a YZF-R3 if you've just started riding. So let's find out what makes this bike just a little bit better than the YZF-R3. Now up on the front here, you can see this really aggressive front end. I love the daytime running lights, these LEDs on the side, and a nice bright middle headlamp, which also have a really bright high beam function. These are really great. I really like the design with these daytime running lights, which matches the look of the YZF-R1. Now we do have some decals and stickering up here. What I find weird is that there's a sticker on one side but not the other, so it's not symmetrical, or they just forgot to put it on. But I do like the Yamaha one that's printed here on the front guard. Now in terms of our brakes, we have 298mm brakes. They're massive and they're powered by a Brembo master cylinder up top. So they are pretty impressive to look at. They're twin discs, but we'll see how they ride in just a second. And then to finish off the front, we have adjustable KYB upside down forks, and these ride really nice. And the whole idea of these forks is to give you a nice balance between comfort riding and track focused riding. So we'll put those to the test in just a bit, but I won't be adjusting them for this ride. Now let me talk about the features from front to back. This bike comes in 3 colorways. You've got this blue, you've got a black, and you've also got a 60th anniversary livery, which is like a race replica, and it looks pretty nice, but it is a bit more expensive. So for the best bang for buck, I think the blue is the best way to go, and just avoid the black because I think it looks a little bit plain. And I also like how the blue is matched with these multi-spoke wheels. And you've also got fatter Bridgestone rubber on this as well, so it just looks like a more proper sports bike over the YZF-R3. Now you've also got some nice fairing designs here as well, and you've got deeper knee pockets, so it allows you to tuck in, especially behind this windshield, and you get a really nice aerodynamic riding position. The seat height is 835mm, and someone who's 5'11" like me, I can fit on this bike pretty easy. And you can see here, and you get a nice tuck down position as that raised tank allows you to rest your chest there. I would probably invest in a tank guard because I just feel that my zippers and stuff like that over time would wear against this little tank. Now I like the handlebar position here. It's nice and raked as well, and you just got an aggressive riding position, although it does start to hurt your wrist a little bit over time because it is pretty aggressive. And I do like the lever positions. They're very easy to adjust and feel, and they also have a good amount of reach to them, so you don't feel like you're bending your arms inwards. So they're a good design. And also you have your little brake reservoir up here, and this looks really quite proper. If you've ever wanted the look of a proper sports bike, you can go and, hey, grab yourself a YZF-R7 with that reservoir, because the YZF-R3 doesn't have that, and so it's just something extra that makes us feel like a bit of a bigger and more aggressive bike. Now I also like the design of the Yamaha logo being placed up here. I also like the Yamaha logo on the side here stamped into the metal, and also like this little fin work here up on the tank. It just looks like a miniature version of the YZF-R1 from a distance. I also like the quality of materials as well. It does feel like a pretty expensive bike, and I especially just how I love everything clicks together. It just sounds good, feels good, looks good, and this bike really does a good job of justifying its price as a brand new, more powerful learner bike. Now the engine we have here is an inline twin. It's 655cc, but it has been restricted to a smidge over 50 horsepower. So it may sound like a big engine, and it is a big engine, but it's more about the torque that this engine has an advantage over compared to the YZF-R3. Again, we'll test it when we're out riding. Now I do like the mirror design as well, because they're attached to the front fenders up here, which means you can tuck them in and push them out and adjust them without needing an Allen key, which I find very useful. I also like the design of the exhaust down below. This thing's tucked away and it looks fantastic. I just like it a lot more than bikes that have larger exhausts. It just looks a lot tidier and just a bit more aggressive. Now I also like the design of the shock being put in the middle here, because it just helps with keeping the weight central, and also, according to Yamaha, keeps the weight evenly distributed as well. And I also really like the aerodynamics of the rear design here. Look at that, so aggressive, and really does emanate a larger sports bike, a lot better than the YZF-R3. So it looks far more aggressive and just gives you a more complete super sport look to your learner bike. And then out the back we have an LED tail lamp, and we also have LED indicators, which also have some adjustability to them, a little bit of flex, flex, so they won't just snap off all that easy. Although I do note that they're not as flexible as the YZF-R3, so I think if you did a drop test between the two, these would be more likely to snap off than the YZF-R3's indicators. And in terms of practicality, I do like how Yamaha's included this little strap here, although it's not all that useful, but I'm sure some people will find a use for it. But if you use your key here, you can pop open the rear compartment, and that won't reveal a giant toolkit of any sorts. It will literally be enough storage space for one Allen key, which is located here, and maybe a spare pair of underwear. Someone suggested soft drink, but I don't see that happening, and also not sure why you'd want a warm and shaken up soft drink instead. But yeah, this is a really limited bike in terms of storage on the actual bike. So yes, make sure you invest in a good backpack. Now you also have a fully digital LCD display here, which looks fantastic, although I would have liked a temperature gauge like the YZF-R3 gets. In terms of how you control it, you do have some buttons on the handlebars which allow you to go through trip information, your fuel consumption, your average fuel consumption, your engine temperature, and the ambient air temperature. I find that ambient air temperature to really vary depending on how hot the bike is. Right now it seems a little bit enthusiastic. You've also got your time on the right, you've got your fuel gauge, which is very useful, you've got your gears on the top left, and you have your revs which run up the top as well, and your giant speedo in the middle. It's a pretty easy display to use, but as you can see here, the packaging of the braided wires here aren't all that great. I think they could have done a better job tucking these out of the way to make sure that you have better visibility at all times, and especially this giant brake reservoir, if you're leaning in, it can sometimes block the information on the screen. So yeah, that's the only downside, is that it's a little bit blocked, but it is a very usable display for a learner bike. Since the Yamaha R7 doesn't really have a ton of features, it's all about the riding experience for a bike like this. So let's go check out what Yamaha's been cooking with their bigger learner bike. So I just picked this bike up after riding the Yamaha R3, and immediately what I felt was that this bike had way beefier tires, and that really helped with stability. So I felt far more comfortable on this bike than I did on the R3 in terms of being able to pick up a bit more speed and having a bit more confidence through corners. Now, in addition, I definitely noticed I didn't have to twist my wrist as deep as I had to on the R3, because this has way more torque and obviously has more power and a larger displacement motor. So this thing felt like a proper bigger bike. It didn't really feel like a big bike with a small motor. And the ergonomics of the ride was something that I really liked on the R7 over the R3. The R3 felt very beginner friendly, where the R7 felt like you were jumping onto a proper big bike and actually being able to enjoy your ride by having a more aggressive and more sort of hunkered down riding position, which was a lot more fun and something that you get to sort of experience a bit better on the R7 than you do on the R3. Now, the brake upgrade was nice, but it sort of felt like it complemented the speed and extra power. It didn't really feel like it was noticeably majorly different compared to the R3, because the R3 is a lighter bike. So yeah, the R7 had a nice brake setup. It did feel like I could grab onto those front brakes and stop nice and quickly, and also had a nice smooth control on the rear brakes as well. But yeah, what I really did notice with this bike was its ability to corner and handle. It just felt far easier to do that on this bike, and I felt like I could just get a bit lower on this bike than I could on the R3, purely because the way this bike was set up. It doesn't mean that you can't get lower on the R3, but it just felt like the R7 just had a better leaning sort of control on the actual bike itself, and it was thanks to that wider rear seat and also the fact you had a more aggressive riding position and obviously fatter rubber. So I definitely think if you're chasing the R1 look and feel, the R7's a way better pick than the R3. But if you don't really care about the R1 and you just want a starter learner bike, then I think the R3 was still plenty usable and still plenty of fun, where the R7 definitely felt like a proper graduation from something like the R3. And now I'm used to riding my Ducati Monster I used to own, which had a more lumpy type L twin, where this parallel twin felt far more put together in terms of being smoother. It had a smoother power delivery, but it didn't sound as good. So if I was going to buy this bike, I definitely would think about getting a slip-on exhaust to sort of make this thing sound just a little bit more exciting when you're riding through a twisty section of road, just like I'm on right now. Now, really, the only downsides of riding this thing was that the motor didn't feel as top and powerful as it could be, and maybe with a slight tune from the factory it could have been a bit more aggressive that way, but it did feel a lot smoother and a lot more enjoyable to sort of ride through the rev range than something like an L Twin, which I was riding on my old Ducati Monster, which was my previous experience with larger displacement learner bikes. In addition, I did find the wires a little bit annoying to sort of look past on the LCD display, and I did find it quite sunken in to the actual little windshield there, which was something that was a little bit distracting and sometimes hard to read in some bright light, but otherwise it was a fine LCD display, and you could quickly have a glance at your speed, which is obviously the main important thing, and if you forget whatever gear you're in, at least you can glance at that too, so it was pretty useful when I was riding, but those wires do need a tidy up. Now, it was obvious that the suspension was a bit more comfort orientated than a sporty stiff setup. It was a nice in-between, I'd say. So yeah, I think this is a very approachable suspension setup for learners. Now, while the R3 might be more applicable to a lot of learner riders as it's more affordable and obviously less powerful, so it's far more approachable, the R7 really did deliver in being more aggressive, more powerful, and just feeling like more bike for the money. So if you're going to spend more, you will get a better riding experience, as you would hope. Now, truthfully, it's a lot of money for a learner bike, and that's just something that's going to be a bit of a hard pill to swallow for people who don't really see the value in a bike like this. I think this is a great bike if you've already had some experience or seat time on a bike previously and are looking to get into road bikes or back into biking, or just want a big capacity bike to learn on. This is a great starting point for that. But I would say if you've never touched a bike before, it might be a bit too much to learn the basics of riding. What I like is that this is a clear step up from the YZF-R3 and allows you to learn the basics a bit more and get more aggressive with your riding with a smidge more power and some improved ergonomics here to give you a more aggressive feeling bike. And I think this is a perfect stepping stone into the 1 liter bike territory. Now look, the design, fit and finish, and the features that this bike come with are all very stock standard for a learner bike. Really what makes this bike pretty special is its design and also ability to really perform well out on the road. This is one of those bikes that you could comfortably take away on a weekend trip or go out riding whenever you want, and also do some daily riding in it. It's very approachable, has great turning circle, and is quite comfortable. I really like the bike in that regard. I think some slight improvements could be had in terms of just tuning this engine in a different way to sort of give it a wider power band, because yes, all that torque is sunken down lower in the rev range, and I also think just some tidying up of the wires around the screen would just be a major improvement that could help a lot of learner riders find this bike a bit more attractive to start riding. I do think if you're open to other types of bikes, this has pretty stiff competition, but in terms of being a super sport design, and also basically if you really want a Yamaha R1 but legally can't ride one, this is going to be your best bike until you get that as a brand new option. So look, overall, I really think this is a brilliant first bike option. But yes, keep your mind open to other types of bikes if you want to expand your buying options for the price this bike is asking. But if you're strictly after the super sport experience, this is one of the best you can get, and I would highly recommend checking one out. Now, thank you so much for watching our second ever motorcycle review here at Product Review Cars. Now, I've been throwing these on here because, you know, it's not worth making a completely different channel for something that we're not doing that frequently. So I hope you enjoy it, and let me know in the comments if you liked it. And if you want to see me review more bikes like this, let me know down below. I definitely have a few more bikes booked from Yamaha to check out in their learner range. So if you don't want to miss out on that, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell. My name's Cameron. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.